Hello and welcome to the Greater Springfield Business Connect podcast, or as we're calling it, the GSBC. This podcast is proudly brought to you by the Greater Springfield Chamber of Commerce and proudly powered by Purple Bunny Marketing. I'm your host, Matt Taylor-Farrington from Purple Bunny Marketing, and today I am joined with Martin from Wounded Heroes.
Yeah, g'day Matt, how are you?
Good. And we're going to talk about all the wonderful things that Wounded Heroes does to support our veterans. So we'll dive straight in.
Sure.
Can you elaborate on the specific types of crisis support that Wounded Heroes provides to current and ex-surfing veterans and their families?
Sure. Well, we're a charity that's established 2007.
Yes.
And our primary purpose is to support current serving members, as you've identified, families, veterans and families, facing financial crisis, immediate financial crisis and homelessness around Australia. So we're a national charity. And the types of supports that we provide are immediate. That is immediate food and fuel vouchers is our primary, along with immediate emergency accommodation. Our charity is not funded by the government, so we rely on donations. And why I mention that is that we've navigated our way over the last 10 years that we can provide that immediate solution, but then also provide an opportunity to navigate the veteran or family member to further services that just need a little bit more time to be able to find a solution to their current issues. So ours is really just that sort of frontline emergency crucial support. Yep. We call that a hand up, not a handout. It's just when they get stuck, and veterans are very proud and families are very proud people. It's very hard for them to ask, and we're not necessarily the first call.
No,
there are the larger organisations out there. So our model is designed that we don't judge and that we can provide that immediate support with them once we've identified them as a veteran with $200 and $300 food and fuel vouchers.
Yes.
And that allows then us to give them some time and some space, but also restore their dignity that they've had to ask for help and they're not bred that way. Their DNA is not that way to actually ask for help. So the model's working. In 2023, we looked after just under 3,000 ADF members, veterans and families. And we've just crossed over 4,000 this year, so we're very, very busy.
Yes.
But as I said to many people, I've got the greatest job in the world because I go home at night and everyone's got issues in their lives. I go home and go, you know what, my life's not too bad after what I witness every day.
Yeah, agreed. It would be definitely an eye-opener. Yeah. So I guess you're that frontline initial kind of help before you can kind of transition them off to other services to provide the better help.
So we call ourselves the navigator. We just and that's around Australia. We just develop people that our go-tos around Australia that no matter what the scenario might be, we'll be able to try and find a way to help them.
Yep. Perfect. Amazing work. All right. So you've also got a program I read on there about the Horses for Heroes program that connects veterans with horses to enhance emotional healing. Can you kind of explain what that is and how that program works? Yes.
So we established the Horses for Heroes program. So it's an equine healing program, a ground-up program. We established that in 2018 at Wakehole, in behind the prisons there near Walston House. We've got 22 acres out there. Currently we have 9 horses out there, and the prime purpose of it is to provide a veteran primarily and also transitioning members of the Defence Force that have lost their jobs and they've lost their confidence, lost their tribe. And really the power of the horse in building the confidence back of the veteran that's just lost their job and there's stuff going on at home, medication and all the sorts of things that go on in that space.
Yes.
Really it's just about restoring their confidence. That oftentimes we'll get a veteran out there, and we have a group of we have 9 horses, so we take up to 9 veterans. Yep. And oftentimes we let the horse choose the veteran.
Yeah, wow.
So they make it this instant connection that it's something that you actually have to witness. It's quite amazing and emotional.
Yes.
And I remember one day we had a lad there who was transitioning out, not good. He did come from the country, and his wife came down with his 2-year-old a 4-year-old, and she had a baby.
Yes.
So she actually stayed for the 4-day program, after the first day, the Tuesday morning, the veteran came up and said to me that he didn't have a drink last night. Yep. Which was the first time. And he said, my daughter sat on my lap and says, "Oh, Daddy, you're not mad at me tonight." And that was quite an emotional thing. And people wondered, because we've self-funded this so far.
Yes.
And people have often wondered, but on the Thursday we put a barbecue on and invite the family and have them surround their spouse. And I was down on the field, and as an aside, the equine manager running it was throwing bread at my feet, so I had 9 horses bashing into me, and that was quite funny, really. But as I was walking up, and we had all the families there.
Yes.
And as I was walking up the path to go home, I had this grab at the back of my leg, and it was this girl, 4-year-old. And she looked like Shirley Temple, which you're probably too young to know.
I know who Shirley Temple is, but yes. But I am young, yes, thanks.
And she just looked up at me and said, thank you for saving my daddy. So I managed to get to the car and then had a bit of a cry.
Yes.
And because it's not really our core business, but we're getting such wonderful impact and saving lives with that program as well.
Yes. And I guess the thing that people need to understand is that you're not just helping the direct veteran, but also their families.
That's right.
And supporting them through it. So, all right. Obviously, mental health issues are prevalent anywhere these days, but we're also, obviously it's a key issue amongst veterans. How is Wounded Heroes assisting those veterans in assisting with mental health?
Well, look, there's a lot of, as you mentioned, there's mental health everywhere. And our space is pretty much all mental health. So you have a transitioning member from the Defence Force, and people may not know, but once you can't go to war, you're out.
Yes.
And so these are boys that have since 6 years old wanted to be in the army, and suddenly, particularly out of Afghanistan, we had 21, 22-year-old boys that had lost their job, and girls. So, of course, and that's through physical injury, which of course leads to mental health, lost their job. And so they're often medicated and they're back at home. And, veterans are generally away, or current serving members are away 3 weeks or 4 weeks. So generally it's the spouse that's managing the family and the kids. And coming back into that unit, he's lost his tribe.
Yes.
He's lost his routine, so his PT, and he's still sitting on the couch medicated. So that leads to a lot of family dysfunction as they go to oversubscription of those medications, and then it gets onto the higher stuff, whether that be addiction issues around gambling, alcohol, or drugs.
Yes.
And of course, then that leads to family dysfunction. So that's where we actually then ends up into veteran homelessness. So there's at any one time around Australia, there's 5,800 homeless veterans in a 12-month period around Australia, and that's often the cause, all directly related to their mental health. And I guess it's been exacerbated recently, more recently, as you know, I've been doing this nearly 14 years. 8 or 9 years ago, it used to take about 5 months for the veteran to achieve his pension or his payments. Right now, as we speak, it's 3 to 5 years. So that's our space, is that time where, you can get by for 5 months. Families can do it. But when you're talking about 3 to 5 years, and of course, oftentimes they've had subsidised housing through Defence, so they're looking for accommodation. The cost of living's knockabout, and that's why our rates have gone up, Matthew, and rates of calls, and so they're coming out to this region. That's why there's such a high prevalence of veterans in the Springfield, Scenic Rim, Ipswich region. Is looking for housing affordability, but also then they could also have mortgages, and suddenly they're on, instead of $100,000 a year, let's call it, they've gone back down to Centrelink, because they have to wait for their payments. And I guess one of the messages I've been pushing for the last 2 or 3 years is to have the community. And I know Greater Springfield Chamber has been amazing in regards to understanding this, is that it's little known, but I'll keep pushing it, is that the Australian Defence Force is the only organisation in Australia that doesn't have work cover. So you can lose your job, and normally if you're in a civilian land, you'd have a work cover claim, say 80% of your pay. They're actually having to come to our land and prove their injuries and prove their mental health, and they have to be stable. So they have to have 4 psychiatric appointments before they can actually get their money. So, and then of course you add into the COVID experience and the rest of it, and that's why you have such high rates of mental health and high rates of veteran suicide in Australia. And our aim as Wounded Heroes is to, as I say, give them a hand up, but also say, hey, we've got you. Here's some food and fuel. How else can we help? And then we navigate that out. So that's pretty much our space. And I know you've been a big supporter of what we've been doing, Matt.
I have, yes. Well, obviously we touched on housing instability there as part of that, and those are staggering numbers about like how many veterans we actually have not housed, not got somewhere to go. And then I guess obviously that time period that it takes to get there is just insane.
It's diabolical.
Yeah. And I mean, it's obviously, created what you've had to do in your space to be able to support them during that time. And then obviously community involvement, I guess, is critical to your business,
Yes.
And ensuring that you keep fundraising to be able to raise that money.
Yes.
So is there any key events? And, obviously I'm aware of the op shop that you have as well, but is there any other fundraising programs or events that we should know about or that we can kind of make the audience aware of?
Well, I think you should go back to the Veteran Centre, which we have our op shop, as you mentioned,
Yes.
and our cafe. So that's actually, because we're not government funded, albeit that 60% of our calls come from the Department of Veteran Affairs looking for food vouchers and fuel. The op shop has been a godsend, and probably the reason that we're here today is that we seem to have connected the dots with the community, particularly in the Ipswich Scenic Region and Springfield area. And that is that with the op shop, we're not a corporate op shop, so we can still get a business shirt for $1.
Yep.
And because people understand that we're connected into the veteran community, and because there's such a high portion, I think 80% of people in this area are connected to the military some way or another.
Yes.
They're donating, so we can't keep up with the donations. We get about 1,200 a week people come through, always looking for donations, but then that's allowed us to create a sustainability model on our own versus coming out and sort of rattling that bucket. I guess that's the first thing. We've recently launched... I'll come to a couple of events that we've got, Matt, in a minute, but we've just recently launched on Remembrance Day. We're the first non-profit organisation in Australia that's got their own coffee.
Yep.
We've now called it Coffee for Heroes. So all profits are going straight back into our charitable purpose.
Yeah, wow.
And we're launching on Friday, which I'm hoping you'll come. Yes. We're launching on Friday a community affiliation program as well. Yep. So we're looking at not just raising money for ourselves, but we're trying to engage with other community groups that are all poor, that are all looking for passive income, and we're hoping that we can connect the dots within this community to say, hey, here's some opportunity there. As to events, we're pretty much out there every weekend. On Saturday, we're at Willowbank with the charity out there for the finals out there. We're also down on the Gold Coast with Motorculture, rattling a tin down there as well. So we've got some great organisations in the Ipswich region, and also we just hooked up with Queensland Raceway as well. So we've got the trifecta out there with the Ipswich Turf Club and Willowbank and Queensland Raceway. But I guess the one that might interest, which we're about to launch in a couple of weeks' time, but we had a meeting this morning, so we're running an event for International Women's Week next year on the 8th of March at the Ipswich Turf Club. Okay. Thanks to Nathan out there that gave us some really good rates, and we're looking for a really good marketing company to come out and give us a hand, nudge, nudge.
Yes.
And what we did this time is that, again, it's about community. And I think that's why one of the reasons you had me in here today. So instead of making this about Wounded Heroes fundraising, we've actually teamed up with the Alison Baden Clay Foundation. Okay. So we had Alison's sister in this morning, Vanessa, and met Alison's parents about a couple of months ago, which was extremely emotional. So we're actually going to run a joint fundraiser, 50-50, out there, and we're getting a panel going together at the moment. And we're actually, the theme for next year's International Women's Week is inclusion. We're actually switching it. We're going to make ours resilience. So we've got resilience with the domestic violence in the community, and Alison Baden Clay's foundation, and then of course we've got resilience within the veteran community. So we believe that we'll have a successful event, but also highlight the domestic violence, but mental health as well in the community. That all relates to that. And there's domestic violence, as you can appreciate, in the veteran community as well as there is in the community.
Correct. Yeah, it does seem to be a growing area of concern. So. All right, so looking ahead, what is the primary goal for Wounded Heroes, and I guess what is your plan to expand or improve what you can do for veterans?
Oh, I didn't read that question.
Caught you off guard.
Look, our primary focus is obviously just making sure that we can meet our obligations to the community that are donating to us, because I think there's 60,000 registered charities in Australia, and I think that there's a lot of charity fatigue out there, and for us, focusing on not only fundraising but also the truth, telling the truth about, hey, this is where your money's going, and we've been able to demonstrate that with all public donations going directly to veterans. There's no administration coming at that. As to the future, we're We're running a fundraiser after Anzac Day next year, and which is our largest event of the year, and it's a CrossFit event. So we go with CrossFit gyms all around Australia called 24 Hours of Heroes. Yep. So every hour it's the most emotional event. It's an event, not a competition. And last year this year I should say, we raised $330,000 from that event.
Yeah, wow.
But this year, we're actually going to be donating 20% of our fundraising to emergency services. So at this stage, we'll be donating and around Australia. So we're in the process of finalising an agreement across Australia, but we have finalised an agreement with Police Legacy in Victoria. Yep. So each of those organisations will be a beneficiary of those. A lot of first responders do the event. Yes. But first responders have the same issues as veterans. But they don't have a Department of Veteran Affairs. Each of those emergency services are state-based. Yep. So, and they're all struggling for that dollar to be able to do what we do in regards to that emergency. So we think by aligning ourselves. So if you ask me about the future and letting the cat out of the bag, if I had Gina Reinhart, hi Gina, if I had $5 million today, I'd open up this organisation to provide the same service to emergency services around Australia, your frontline guys and girls in police, AMBO and fire. But really at the moment it's probably just keeping our head above water. For those watching that are corporates, we believe we're a great partner for you because we're not reliant on your money, but we are a great partner and we're obviously well engaged within this community. So again, we thank you and thank Springfield Council and Chamber that the Springfield Chamber of Commerce is the best chamber I deal with around Australia, and that's just not because I'm sitting here. They're very active and they're very interested in the individual charity and individual organisations and trying to promote that, and we're pretty honoured to be here today. So thank you. Yeah,
thank you. Well, thank you for coming in. I couldn't agree more. Yep. The GSBC podcast is a first from what we've seen as well for podcasts within the chambers. So, they definitely, the Springfield Chamber is definitely ahead of most in that space.
I think it's well ahead of most.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you for tuning into the latest episode of the GSBC. To keep up to date with everything happening around the Springfield business community, make sure that you like and subscribe via the links below. And we'll catch you on the next episode of the GSBC.